Shortly after this, Antron Singleton was found in the streets of LA near his apartment. He was completely naked, covered in blood, and he was screaming at the sky. He was immediately apprehended and taken into custody. A medical exam was conducted.
Bro, I have never heard this shit, bro. PCP hit that strong? PCP hit like that? Yo, welcome back to the room, back at another video. Today we're gonna be reacting to The Rapper Who Ate His Roommate by D Burke 321. For getting to this video, make sure to sub, like the video, and comment if you feel like it. Let's get straight into it.
Horrorcore, a subgenre of hip-hop where rappers will take their lyrics, imagery, and messaging to the darkest brinks that they can possibly imagine. At times, this genre gives us some hard-hitting, intense storytelling that is both effective and artistic. Other times, it can be a bit gimmicky and seem more like a competition to say the most messed up
I
thing
ain't never
possible,
heard this.
even if it means nothing.
I seen this on my shit and I was like, bro, what?
However, there is another
Go ahead and sub before I do something I don't want to.
Category of horrorcore that has
Cannibal
made the
rappers,
genre as controversial as it is, and that's when artists actually do the things that they are rapping about. Today we'll be talking about Big Lurch, an artist whose crime was more intense and disturbing than anything he ever rapped about. A crime that included
Eating your ops though, gang? Hey, bro.
drug use, murder, and actual cannibalism. This crime greatly overshadowed the career of Big Lurch, so unlike other episodes where we dive deep into their musical career, we're instead going to cover that briefly before jumping right into this insane case, because trust me, there is more than meets the eye when it comes to the case of Big Lurch.
Okay, so he eats people and there's more that meets the eye. Wrong voice. Nah, I ain't gonna lie, they gotta lock bro up though.
Antron Singleton was born on the 15th
I
of
love this
September
soundboard, dog.
1976 in Fort Worth, Texas. He had an early interest in poetry, but in the 80s, this turned into a passion for hip-hop and he started rapping under the alias G Spade. This would later become Big Lurch because of how tall he was, standing at around 6'6" in size. In retrospect, Lurch had a lot of success
6'6"? Lakers need a center, bro.
in the 90s from an underground perspective, and he wasn't even really doing horrorcore at the time.
I'm playing with the wrong clips.
With the likes of E40, RBL Posse, Mystical, and Too Short. Many of these artists are still well known today and had a huge impact on the hip-hop scene in the 90s, specifically in the West Coast. Big Lurch wasn't as well known as some of his contemporaries, but he was right there with them, collaborating, networking, and rubbing shoulders with some of hip-hop's biggest names. On top of this, he was quite talented and sounded right at home with the rappers he collaborated with.
We're jumping, pumping, brainwaves with no assumptions. I'm ready to roll with something. If you wanna come get it, I'm thumping. Get split quick, fucking with this, you don't understand. This ain't your
damn, this shit kind of sound buns
now.
now.
His solo career, Lurch formed a group with two other musicians, Dooney Baby and Rick Rock. Together they created the trio known as Cosmic Slopshop and released one studio album, Da Family. From everything I was able to find, this album was also quite good and definitely well put together. Unfortunately, this didn't translate to sales and the album wasn't that successful. They had one song called Sinful that did decent numbers and got a small bit of radio play, but apart from that, the Cosmic Slopshop weren't all that successful, and although there was a lot of potential and talent,
that'd be so sad. Like, how many people do you know that were as good as the greats but just didn't get that push? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's tough.
Within the group, numbers weren't there and the group disbanded in 1999. That was the end of Lurch's musical endeavors in the 90s, and although he wasn't a famous artist by any stretch, that particular decade wasn't all bad. He got his foot in the door, collaborated with quite a few accomplished rappers, and managed to release a full studio album through a record label with a group that he helped create. It looked like the 2000s might have been the decade that Lurch could truly find his success, but it started off in the exact opposite direction. On the 16th of September 2000, Antron was hit by a drunk driver and was badly injured. In order to cope with the pain that his crash brought him, he started taking PCP, otherwise known as angel dust, a highly addictive hallucinogenic drug.
We taking PCP to deal with our pain now, gang?
That also numbs the user. Although it could technically be used to numb somebody's pain, PCP is one of the most intense drugs in the world, as we've learned with so many cases where people do insane things. Well, unfortunately for Lurch and those around him, he would be right in the midst of this insanity less than 18 months after his car crash. In the early 2000s, Big Lurch had started to perform horrorcore music. It wasn't a new genre by any means of the imagination, and he had definitely dabbled in it before, but he was ready to make a full project in the
I'm getting
subgenre.
scared. Like, when
While
we
he
gonna
was
get to
recording
the
this project, he was living in a Los Angeles
to the
apartment with a
horror?
few friends, including 21-year-old Tanisha Yesias and her boyfriend Thomas Moore. On April 9th, 2002, Thomas Moore and Antron started smoking PCP together. According to Antron and almost all of the people who were in the apartment that night, what actually happened was a blur, but the next morning, one of Tanisha's friends, Alyssa Allen, entered the apartment and found Tanisha's body. Her chest had been torn open, tooth marks were found on her body, and small parts of her remains were seemingly missing. Shortly after this, Antron Singleton was found in the streets of LA near his apartment. He was completely naked, covered in blood, and he was screaming at the sky. He was immediately apprehended and taken into custody. A medical exam was conducted
Bro, I have never heard this shit, bro. PCP hit that strong? PCP hit like that?
that showed that Singleton had recently consumed flesh that was not his. At first glance, this case was open and shut. Antron Singleton had taken PCP with his friends, and a few hours later, he killed and ate parts of his roommate. Now, it is more convoluted than that, and we'll talk about that soon, but as far as the justice system was concerned, this was more than enough. Singleton pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, but this defense failed, and in 2003, he was found guilty of murder and aggravated mayhem and was subsequently sent to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As I mentioned previously, Antron was working on a horrorcore album, and unfortunately for him, some of these songs were used against him in court. Specifically the song I Did It To You, a song where he talked about murder in a cold and unabashful way and compared himself
I ain't gonna
to
lie,
multiple
bro,
different
had to
fictional
go.
horror characters and real-life serial killers.
Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers and Freddy Krueger, Jeffrey Dahmer, Charles Manson, and all of your friends are Prince to school ya. Cause murder's a hobby, I'm using a torture chamber and not a Ruger. So if you wake up in a puddle of blood, I did it to you.
This song was from the album It's All Bad, and it was actually
They just be making it too easy.
released by the
They're
label
making
that
it
he
too
was working
easy,
with
bro.
a year after he was sentenced. A very strange and morbid promotional tactic they used was through the album artwork of this record. It was a Photoshop picture of Big Lurch holding a platter with a human skull on top of it, very obviously alluding to the horrid crime that he had committed.
Gang,
It
they
was
are
around this
not
time
even
that
trying to
people
hide
started
it.
to ask some questions. The label were obviously trying to profit off this crime, and this put some interesting question marks on the case. The more people looked, the more people found, and as it turns out, there was a lot more discrepancies with this case than people think. Big Lurch didn't necessarily profess his innocence immediately. However, he always claimed that he had no idea what had happened on that night, and that it's entirely possible that there was a lot more to this story. The first reason there may have been some discrepancies was his label. He was signed to a record company called Black Market Records from Sacramento, and it's safe to say that they had quite the reputation. They would promote their artists as dangerous criminals, and they did everything in their power to sell this gangster image to the masses. We already talked about the
This shit
disturbing
deep,
album
I ain't gonna
artwork
lie.
that they released, but what you might not know is that Black Market Records had actually done this before with
Nah, it's finna stop at the murder, but this shit go even deeper
another
than that.
artist named X-Rated. Rated was another rapper from the Sacramento area who went to prison around 10 years prior for murder. Black Market Records, his label at the time, released 4 albums while he was behind bars, and although it was apparent that X-Rated was involved in most of this, it's also very clear that Black Market Records were willing to market his music in whatever way possible. Allegedly, they did the same thing to Big Lurch. Apparently, when they found out that he was smoking PCP for his pain, they decided to provide him with even more drugs in order to authenticate his gangster image and make his music more believable. This same
That's
argument was made by
crazy,
Tanisha's
dog.
mother, Carolyn Stinson, who actually filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the label, claiming that they had
Bro,
fed
that's
Antron.
actually crazy, dog. They seen that he was doing drugs and they said, let's give him more drugs. Like, that's crazy,
The
dog.
drugs that led him to do this. This lawsuit didn't really go anywhere, but this theory remained quite popular for a while. However, it's not the most popular alternative to what happened that night. A documentary called Big Lurch, Rhyme and Punishment was released in 2011, and Big Lurch and Tanisha's mother told us a different side of the story.
As far as her boyfriend, he was a gang member, I believe he the one set all this up. He was beating on her. She had all her stuff packed, ready to leave.
This
the
shit
day all
deep.
this happened.
They got me high on purpose to take advantage of me.
She got hit in the back of the neck.
But at the same time, it's you who's smoking it, bro. You can decide to not smoke it. Talking about, oh, they getting me high. If you know that, then you don't have to get high anymore, gang.
With a one of the little kids' scooters, because a handprint was on the scooter, bloody handprint, but they said they didn't know who that was, but it wasn't his.
It's not even no proof that I actually did the murder. My prints wasn't on her weapon. It was a dope house. They didn't find no dope in the dope house, though.
She didn't smoke the PCP. It was like somebody pulled it down. You know, the bottle was pulled down her throat because she had so much in her system. They said ain't no way she could have smoked that. Footprints, fingerprints on doors, you know, bloody fingerprint, you know, shoe at the back door, you know, and it's like, where all this evidence go? It was DNA. DNA was, they said DNA came up lost. So they
I ain't even think about it like that. Damn.
made it look like he did all this work to her. There's no way he could have done that work because the way she was messed up, hatred had to been there. And like he said, he didn't hate her.
Alright, so that's a lot to digest, so let's quickly break down everything that was just said. Firstly,
Yeah,
Carolyn
please.
Stinson claims that Tanisha's boyfriend, Thomas Moore, was the man who orchestrated this killing. Apparently, they had been fighting both verbally and physically, and Tanisha was more than ready to leave the apartment and the relationship. Antron also believes that he was set up because of the amount of PCP found in his system and her system. According to the medical examination, it was a surreal amount of PCP, and this immediately raised some eyebrows. Secondly, there was a lot of details about the case that was oddly looked over. For example, as Carolyn mentions in the clip, there was a bloody handprint on the scooter that was used in the attack. This handprint did not match Antron's hand, but it was never looked into further. There was also footprints and fingerprints around the actual crime scene that again was not looked into. Furthermore, the tooth marks on the actual body did not match the teeth of Antron, and he actually believes that they more than likely belonged to a baby pit bull that lived in the apartment as well. On top of all of this, there was a lone shoe that was found right by the crime scene that didn't belong to Antron or Tanisha, and this again
Damn.
was not investigated further. It seems like at the very least there was a lot of negligence when it came to
That's just like a crazy frame job, though. I'm not gonna lie.
this case. Big
Right.
Lurch did a 36-minute interview with Vlad TV where he spoke about this case further and claimed the only reason he pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity was because his lawyer told him to do so. Since his incarceration, Big Lurch has been studying the law himself to try and get a retrial. So far this has been unsuccessful, but based on a letter I found that he sent to a fan, he is still optimistic and hopes that a retrial will happen. In all honesty, based on the evidence that wasn't analyzed and the facts that were ignored, it does seem like a retrial should happen. I'm not saying that anybody is innocent or guilty, but when you look at the facts that were ignored, it's clear
I ain't gonna lie. When it could be more, but I feel like he was still, you know what I'm saying? Like he did something to deserve the time. What's it called? If you enjoyed the video, make sure to sub, like the video if you feel like it, and comment. Peace.